This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.
Hey everybody, it's John Halvey, Senior Editor of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. I'm in New York City at the venerable Blind Tiger Ale House down here on Bleecker Street. And I'm excited to have a guest in from out of town, hanging out in the city for a couple of days, promoting your wares. Dave Engbers from Founders Brewing Company, the co-founder of Founders, which was founded in 1997.
97. We've been doing this for a while.
Does that trip people up, like when they introduce you as the co-founder of Founders?
Yeah, I mean, we've been called a lot of things. Co-founder of Founders, dirty bastard. We've got, we've been called a lot of things over the years.
Some beer names, some as insults.
Yeah.
What brings you into the city?
Really, we came out here to, we always come in to see our team. We've got about 170 people in our sales force across the U.S. Anyway, so it's always kind of fun to come out here and see some accounts, see some old friends, and always grab a beer, talk to our wholesalers.
I remember drinking your beer early on in my drinking career, and I remember meeting you early on when I first started writing about beer, and to hear 71 people on your sales staff these days?
Yeah, about 170.
And I read somewhere that you guys are north of 500 employees right now?
It fluctuates, but around 576 last I knew.
So coming up on 600 employees. I mean, you guys are massive right now, which is really kind of remarkable because, and I want to get into, what happened to you guys back in like 2001 or, in some of those early days, like when you were running into some money troubles. It seems like, and I want to, because I think that's something that is facing a lot of brewers these days, and you guys obviously lived through it and, not only survived, but thrived.
I think a lot of, when we actually got into the industry and, 97, there are a bunch of breweries that were opening up, and that's kind of the time that a lot of breweries were actually going out of business.
Yeah.
We kind of thought our window of opportunity. We thought our window of opportunity was closing. And now we look back 21 years later, and people, kind of refer to us as some of the veterans of the industry. So we always kind of refer to ourselves as second generation. We've got to tip our hat to some of the folks that did the heavy lifting and the trailblazing, the Ken Grossmans and Fritz Maytag and Larry Bell down at the time it was Kalamazoo Brewing Company. But having Larry, with his brewery just an hour south of us in Kalamazoo, Michigan, we're up in Grand Rapids. A lot of those folks did a lot of the heavy lifting for us during our generation of breweries. It was kind of the introduction of the internet, and so I think our generation of brewers really kind of created a beer culture and kind of created the enthusiast community. And so we've been very fortunate that as we have grown. Even 12 years ago, we only had about 20 employees. And then we got to this point where we were too big to be, a regional player, and we were too small to be a national player. So we kind of doubled down, made some.
Because that's a shitty place to be.
Well, it's I think where a lot of businesses end up, and you have to make a decision. Do you want to modify your business model to stay where you are and kind of hone in, in a certain region, or do you want to double down and go big? And that's what we did. We're still fairly young, and we decided to invest a lot of money into new equipment, more real estate, put a lot of feet on the street to support the brand. Because back then it was, there's 2,000 or 3,000 breweries.
7,000 now.
Now there's 7,000. Yeah. So. Anyway, it's been a hell of a journey and kind of a fun adventure.
But when do you make up that decision, or what went into that decision of, okay, like we've carved out a nice little footprint for ourselves, we're Michigan known, You guys are a destination in Grand Rapids and in that part of the state. Beers like KBS sort of put you guys on the map a little bit and got people interested in what you guys were doing. And you could probably be a perfectly fine regional brewery.
Yeah, I think we could have sat back and said, hey, this is kind of a good little gig we've got going here, and
So what pushed you then to say, all right, let's double down, let's get the money, let's go from there? Because there's some people who I think get to that point, and it's a toss of a coin. It's going to be
it's a comfort level, I guess, and there's no question there's stress that goes along with it, but we're fairly accustomed to pretty significant growth, and we looked at it, and you know what? We love what we do, and I think there's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to, when someone says, "Oh, you can't do this," or, "This won't work." It's kind of fun to just kind of say, "You know what? Watch us." So, I've been saying that to our team. 12 years ago when we were producing, 6,000 barrels a year, if people would turn around and say, 10 years from now you'll be doing, 600,000 barrels, people would say, "No way," and here we are, and.
You guys have capacity for 1 million at this point.
We're about 1 million between our facilities, and we're going to get to the point, fairly soon where we're already looking at is it time to start looking for real estate for another facility, and that's that may be down the road a little bit, but you're always looking at the landscape, and you always have to look a few years out.
When you talk about coming into the industry and some of the groundwork that folks like Bell's and Sierra and New Belgium and all sort of laid out for you guys, and you now mention, okay, look at the landscape, try to figure out new property, new places to grow. Are some of the places like Green Flash a cautionary tale for you, or what we saw, even with Lagunitas, that they were going to put in their new Southern California brewery, and that didn't happen, and a lot of the expansion from folks going to from the West Coast to the East Coast as well. Like Sierra realized that dream, and it's worked out really well for them. But there's been a few others that just haven't gotten there. Deschutes was on plan for Roanoke for a while, and I don't think that's on the board anymore.
Well, I think we look at it, and obviously, we're pretty sophisticated business, and we've got the tools now that we can look at our numbers and look at our growth rates, and quite honestly, we've all seen it right now. What we should all be doing in this entire industry is holding each other's hands and getting more people to drink beer again, and quit name calling, and quit kind of defining who's craft, who's not craft, and quit the mudslinging, and let's see if we can pull ourselves up from our bootstraps and start saying, let's build this category up again and make it cool again.
But see, that's such an interesting take, right? Because, 4 years ago, you guys sold 30% of your company to the Spanish brewer Mahul, right?
Mao San Miguel.
And all of a sudden, the club that you had been a part of said that you guys couldn't be in that club anymore.
I'll tell you what, the partnership with Mao has been nothing but remarkable. Just what a spectacular family, what a great partnership, and it truly is a partnership. We spend a decent amount of time in Spain, and they come over.
That's worth it for the 30% alone.
Well, yeah, Spain's pretty wonderful, but they've got people in Grand Rapids, and they're really interested in what we do as a in the beer industry as a category. They see what we've done as North American brewers, and they think that this is the future on a global scale. So, their partnership was really, I think, part of their motivation was they think this is going to be the model that can go on a global basis.
But to go back to what you were saying, though, of the name calling and what we call ourselves and things like that. Every time that there's one of these, and this wasn't an acquisition, this was, they took part of your company. This isn't like AB came in and lock, stock, and barrel. Yeah. But still, there's this hand-wringing, and there's these fraught blog posts, and there's, the fans taken to the Facebook page and saying, we loved you guys, and now you're not craft. And, and I agree with you that there does need to be a bit of a reckoning on some of that, and we need to rethink of that. Do you guys, are you a craft brewer?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you define it? So the BA has their definition, which a lot of people just kind of fall in line with.
What it sounds silly, but I what defines a craft brewer? first of all, I think we should just get rid of the word craft.
Oh,
I mean,
we're
a brewer.
Amen to that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
anybody who's read my new book knows that I fall with that. Yeah.
You know, just
despite the name of this
small,
podcast being the Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine podcast.
We've been saying, you know, being small doesn't mean quality. Being local doesn't mean quality. Doesn't mean fresh. Doesn't mean consistent. You know what? We've worked our ass off for 20-some years to hone our craft and to be really, really good at what we do. So maybe it's juvenile, but I consider a craft brewer based on the quality and consistency of their liquid.
And the ones who survived that shakeout when you were getting into the industry are the ones who were really focused on quality and making sure, like, they weren't necessarily just dicking around. Like, it was. I
think you look at like the top larger breweries in the United States. You know, we didn't get there by accident. Mm-hmm. You know, I will say this, and you know, maybe 20 years ago we had some happy mistakes, and that goes into the line of like experimentation and, you know, kind of throwing away the rule book and doing things our own way. And sometimes it works, and you know, most often it doesn't work. But you learn. What's
a beer that you would call a happy mistake that you guys put out that people would know?
You know, man, a whole bunch of them. Maybe not mistakes, but you know,
well, I'm using your word.
So, you know, like when we started barrel aging, you know, and for some of the listeners that don't realize it, but you know, 20 years ago, barrel aging was kind of a new phenomenon.
Sure.
We didn't know what was going to happen, but you know, as you kind of go through that process, you realize something really magical is happening within those barrels, and then, you know, then all of a sudden you have to hone it, and you got to figure out, all right, well, what worked? Why does this barrel taste this way? Why does this barrel taste a little bit different? I like this aspect of this barrel. I don't like this one. Anyway, so you know, we kind of threw away that rule book a long time ago and said, let's just, you know, experiment and have fun. And if it means that we're going to try something and it may end up in the drain, you know, so be it. What if something magical happens? And I would say, you know, we've got these scissor barrels, these barrels that have previously been aging Michigan maple syrup. I would say that was kind of a happy mistake.
Yeah.
You know, we had a friend who's Steve Stallard, who's a phenomenal chef and just a great guy. And, you know, he has this barrel-aged maple syrup, and he had these barrels that when he was finished, he didn't know what to do with them, and he became a friend, and we started aging some of our beers in them, and something magical happened, you know, and that's one of those fun things that kind of happened. It wasn't a big strategy around it, but...
Is it hard, though, the larger you get, and we'll talk about some of the core beers in a minute, but the larger you get, is it harder or is it easier to retain some of that entrepreneurial spirit? Because, I mean, you're talking about, you know, tables and actuarials, and, you know, you're looking at the numbers as to where you can grow and where you could, you know, open up a new place, and, you know, you have business meetings now that are on a much higher level than when you guys first started in '97.
Yeah, so I mean, we've, you know, as I guess as a company, you've grown also, you know, we've grown and matured.
Yeah.
You know, we look at data. Data doesn't lie, and you know, that we have some markets that are quite mature, and then we have some markets that we're fairly new into. We'll be in 47 states, I think, by the end of this month.
That's incredible.
So we're opening up Colorado this month. So we still have a few markets that we're not in. But, you know, along the lines, you know, we've looked at this, and there are certain markets where our brand is really, really well established. And then, you know, you go, you know, out west in Pacific Northwest, where it's, you know, it's a crowded market, it's a mature market. So our brand's a little different there. We see consumers buying, their buying habits are a little bit different. You know, we kind of created the session IPA category with All Day IPA. I mean, we tend to look at our business from a big step back, and we go, all right, we kind of built our reputation off of KBS and Devil Dancer and Curmudgeon Old Ale and Dirty Bastard and Backwoods Bastard. And then, you know, 14 years into this adventure, all of a sudden we introduce Session IPA, and all of a sudden we've got a high volume brand that's kind of taken over.
And it's like 60% of what you guys make.
Yeah, a little bit less than that, but
okay. Solid Gold's cut into that now.
Well, you know what, we've got just this awesome portfolio, you know. So yeah, Solid Gold is now the the brand that's kind of going after that domestic premium drinker. And we kind of look at it and say, the beer consumer today needs something that they can have this emotional tie-in. And, they look at a brewery that's, really only, 22 years old. And I think our brand resonates with this younger generation, that people can kind of look back and, we're still here. And they can see the dream and the adventure that we've been on. And they can, they're part of it. So it's been a hell of a ride.
I mean, what's fascinating to me, though, is did you guys think that when you put out All Day, was that just... Because with IPAs, everybody's been trying to find that magic bullet, right? It's Sierra Nevada created the category for the American Pale Ale, and everybody's been trying to replicate and find their own path, for that. And these days, it's juicy or it's brute, but we've seen black IPA kind of come by the wayside. And I think in a lot of ways, we've seen session IPA at smaller breweries go by the wayside. Like, I don't walk into a lot of places and see a session IPA in the way that you guys make a session IPA on a lot of taps, which is shocking to me because of how well it's doing for you guys. Was this something that, and I want to point out, I have our best of issue, our best of 2018, and in our Desert Island Beers and Breweries, this was part of our Reader's Choice, All Day was number 5 for if you could drink only one beer for the rest of your life. You guys were number 5. Guinness was before you. My homebrew made it at number 3 because, of course, our readers. Two Hearted's number 2, and then Sierra Pale number 1. But when you look at Sierra Pale, Two Hearted, Guinness, and then you guys, these are all category definers.
Yeah, pretty much iconic brands.
Right.
That's awesome. It's great to be included in that.
And you guys are all over this list, all over these lists from our readers.
So
and
I look at that and I think that the brand is essentially about 5 years old.
Right.
So
and you're up against brands that have been around for much longer than that.
A long time. So it's really it's quite honestly it's really humbling to have our beer in there.
Did you see that coming, or was this like at the time it's like, hey, Sessions are doing it, let's just...
No, because at the time, Sessions weren't doing it.
Okay.
This was honestly us. I mean, we say brewed for us for a reason. We looked at the landscape. We knew that there were a bunch of breweries in the planning stages, and we knew IPAs were hot. And our challenge was, why don't we create a beer that has all the flavor you'd expect from Founders, but lower in ABV, huge aromatics. And we needed a volume driver, to be honest. We had a bunch of beers that were, it kind of defined the brewery, being things like, a Backwoods Bastard or a Kentucky Breakfast Stout. So,
because it was such a departure, though. I remember when this beer first came out, and I was saying, like, God, this isn't Founders. Like, Founders, like, they do the...
Founders.
But they do... But you guys were doing, like, this high ABV stuff that, that I think a lot of drinkers of my generation who were first introduced to you were used to some sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, you threw the pendulum the other way.
Yeah, we did. And I think what was interesting is when we were developing the beer, first and foremost, it had to be brewed for the hardcore beer enthusiast. This wasn't Founders saying, hey, we're looking for something that we can market to a new customer. We were like, this is brewed for hardcore beer enthusiasts that, quite honestly, as we were getting older, my story is I've got a bunch of young kids at the time, and I was reading to my daughters, and, after I was drinking, 3 or 4 of our other brands, I was, trying to be a dad and reading to my kids, and I was.
I
wasn't loaded, but I'm tired,
Sure.
We'll
reading, call it tired, Dad.
I'm reading Beatrix Potter, and I'm falling asleep, and my kids were yelling at me. So I'm like, I love Centennial IPA, just absolutely love that brand, but at 7.2, it was leaving a mark, and so. Anyway, we said if we could create a brand that was all Founders, but just lower in ABV, and big aromatics, that was the goal. And I'd say one of the most telling things that we always look at, back then we weren't doing a lot of sampling and doing surveys, but we talked to other friends in the industry. A lot of other brewers kept saying, "Oh my God, this beer that you guys this thing's awesome." And I think a lot of us that had been in the industry for a long time were really looking for a beer that had flavor, but we realized in the industry that we're in that we all tend to, we all drink beer every single day, and it was like we want something that's got all this flavor, but we're still running a big business.
Yeah.
And you have to be responsible.
And a growing business as well. Like it's.
So I would say this, kind of to finish up on All Day, what we realized really quickly was, one, the brand belonged in a can. At that point, we hadn't gone into aluminum yet. But we realized very, very quickly that this was kind of creating a bridge between, even though it was targeted towards craft beer drinkers, that there were a lot of people that were kind of curious about our category and said, you know what, I love the aroma on this beer. And it did open the doors to like a whole new generation of beer enthusiasts.
And then does that translate in then to Solid Gold and a lot of these other beers that you guys have been doing? Because the thing that I'm always sort of amazed at when it comes to the craft segment, for lack of a better word, is it's 13% of the overall marketplace. So there's 87% of beer drinkers who are drinking Bud Miller Coors or know the words Pilsners and Lagers. And in my opinion, the smart breweries, and there's places like Sam Adams, which has been doing it for a long time, that are sort of at this disadvantage because they're pigeonholed now in a certain way.
Sure.
But you guys with Solid Gold, or we've seen Firestone with Lager and Pivo and some of the others, or 805, get into this overall marketplace right now. I think you're being robbed. I'm just pulling stuff out of your jacket.
That's all right.
But as you see these brewers who are now early craft adopters who were big on flavor, but who are now chasing the other 87% of the marketplace, the place that you can actually grow.
Well, I think we're looking at it with the 7,000 breweries that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I always think that's kind of a misnomer too, because the vast majority of those 7,000 are brew pubs, or very, very small breweries. But we do look at the category in general, and there's no question that, we've been selling craft to craft. We've been looking at this 13%, and we market, we're brewing beers just for these people, for this very, very small fraction of beer drinkers. And that's, I think, what we've been saying now is, with this introduction of Solid Gold, is, there's a much bigger swimming pool right over the fence there.
Yeah.
And why don't we get in there? Why don't we jump in their pool? And there's no question that some of the bigger guys, Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, have been losing market share for years, decades. 1 to 3%, annually. There's a lot of people that aren't drinking beer anymore, and the thing that we keep saying is, one, let's pick up some of those pieces. Let's pick up some of that market share that those guys are losing.
Yeah.
But let's also kind of build the category, and let's make beer sexy again.
Is it difficult, though? Because this is one of the things that I wanted to ask you. The larger you get, the harder it is to have this sort of, intimate... Yeah, I think we're just ordering more beers now.
I just need another beer.
Yeah, no, it's... Yeah, please. Thank you. We're just going to order beer. We're just going to keep going.
Can I get that Hill Farmstead?
Yeah. Do you have a request?
Oh, I was just going to do the pills, the 28.
The number 28?
Yeah.
Oh, that was very good. I just
no, it's so good.
Nice.
Maybe we'll cut this out, but we probably won't. This is
Sorry.
This is New York. This is happening right now. We should have had a signal beforehand of the high five of we're empty.
Yeah. Depends on where we do this.
That's also true. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you, though, is the larger you get, the harder it is to have that intimate connection with people. And so much of in that 13%, right, of craft right now, where Line Life is ruling, Instagram blows up every time that there's a small batch can release from the IT brewery of the moment. And I imagine that there's got to be, even though you guys are doing really well and making money hand over fist and producing, as much beer as you are, there has to be a little bit of, we should try to do something like that, or no.
Quite honestly, our tap room. We've got 2 tap rooms. We just opened up a location in Detroit, which is just about a year old, and our tap room in Grand Rapids has been doing really well. To me, that's the personality. That's the heart of of our of the brewery.
Yeah.
And we have these tap rooms. We brew at both of them, and we're constantly, I always say we push the liquid envelope. We've got some experimental brands that go in there, and I mean we listen to the people, and we experiment, have fun. Obviously, you're not always going to hit a bullseye, but we listen. I mean, we've got an app where people can come into our tap room, try one of our beers, and they rate it. Again, we're very data driven.
Is it Untapped?
No,
Okay.
this
You
is
guys
our
have
own.
your
This
own?
is our own app. And then Jeremy Kosmicki, who's with us here. Jer gets all the feedback, and there's ratings, and we read all the comments and on what people think, and I wish more people used it because
I didn't know you guys were doing that, and this is a good way to get that out there. Does it have to be tap room only, or is it just all for wherever I'm drinking your beers?
no, it's in our tap room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not just rely on Untapped for something like that?
Well, we do. We do look at the ratings. We look at some of the other websites that are doing beer ratings and Untapped. And,
Yeah.
We do. We use everything.
But is there something that's better about your internal data that...
Well, because they're essentially beers that they're exclusively available at Founders. So
Okay.
these are experimental brands, and because.
But what does that, like, if I check in at your app at your place, what is that going to tell you that some of these other companies don't?
Well, I guess it's just because we've got a decent, we've got almost 1,700 members or 1,800 members of our mug club.
Yeah.
It's just we're getting an audience that's coming in. We know that they're either they're mug club members or regulars, or they're beer enthusiasts that are actually making an investment to come to our come to our facility and
Cheers, by the way.
cheers. Nice. Yeah, I mean they're vested beer enthusiasts.
So, yeah, you're drinking the Hill Farmstead there?
Yeah, the hazy thing is still.
It's not going away,
I don't know. I kept thinking that it was going to go away, but it's still here.
Are you guys gonna get into that?
We have not. We like to see through our beers. I'm not gonna lie. I do. I like the hazies in New England style.
Yeah.
In small amounts. But I was. It's interesting. I love the fact that I guess because of our growth, we distribute in Europe. I was in UK last year, and we visited a bunch of 20 small breweries. And every brewery, I'm like, what's your highest volume brand? And every single one of them, it's like, our New England IPA. That we're completely influencing other countries.
Well, absolutely. But what's so interesting is that, again, I'm going to go back to our Reader's Choice, our best beers of 2018, and Sierra Nevada actually showed up on the list with Hazy Little Thing this year for the first time.
Oh, really?
Which was, and this was our readers doing it all day, also number 6.
Okay.
By top 50 best beers according to our readers. I forget where
Sierra's Hazy Little Things. I've got some in my fridge. I think that's one of those misnomers that a lot of people think that we exclusively drink our own beer, but
yeah.
But one of the guys that works for us, Jason Haystack, who's kind of led our barrel aging, he likes Sierra's hazy, and anyway, he had mentioned it, so next time I was at the store, I picked some up.
But that's one of the things, though, right? I mean, it's harder as you get bigger, because that again, that's sort of this intimate beer style, right? Where people line up for it, and you're supposed to drink it fresh, and you're supposed to, it's a sticker can, direct from the brewery, limited quantities, and that's part of the allure of that overall style. And the larger it is your brewery is, the harder it is to actually do that style.
No question.
And Sarah's doing it well, but Sam Adams' New England Style IPA did not make this list, which I don't think surprises a lot of people. It's a fine beer, but there's something about that intimacy of it, and I wonder.
Everyone, I think that's any business. So everyone wants what they can't get. They want. There's a kind of this. Sometimes I think breweries kind of create this false sense of urgency that it's only going to be available for, 2 days or this one weekend a year. It's kind of a cool thing to get people interested and engaged in your brand.
And you guys used to do that with KBS. I mean, there's a whole KBS week, and it used to be like a whole...
Well, KBS kind of was this...
Kentucky breakfast stout for those of you who are
so KBS, when
this.
It initially came out, quite honestly, it was hard to get rid of. No one, it was... I don't know this for a fact, but I think it was the first barrel-aged beer to ever be
I have
packaged.
to fact-check every story you tell me, by the way. We have a history, but yeah.
So I think it was the first barrel-aged beer ever to be packaged. Anyway, and it was,
AB is going to send you a
close to a $20
yeah.
4-pack. And our breweries in fairly conservative West Michigan, and so people weren't accustomed to paying $20 for 4 beers.
12-ounce bottles.
What's that?
12-ounce bottles.
Yeah, 12-ounce.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you have headphones if it's getting too loud for you, by the way. That's
anyway, but I remember back in the day when I was bartending, and we would have our 10-case display, and it would sit out there, and maybe you'd sell a couple cases a weekend. To now that we've kind of created this beer enthusiast community, and now it got to the point when we would release KBS, we had a couple thousand people in line on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And we had people fly in from, they made it a destination thing. So we had people fly in from Australia and all over the United States. And it, quite honestly, it became a burden on our community. Our police department, there are people, drinking and peeing in public. And we realized, as stewards of our community, we need to work with our local government, make sure that everyone had a good experience. No one wants to sit in line for 24 hours and either not get the experience that they had hoped for.
Yeah.
So we changed it into a week-long celebration, and it worked out really, really well.
These days, though, and it used to be, I'd walk into and I'm talking as recent as 2 years ago, I'd walk into a bar at KBS season, whenever it is that you guys release it. It's like late spring, something like that?
Yeah, it's
varied,
usually March,
I guess.
April.
Yeah. And places that had kegs of it would be selling it for $20 an 8-ounce glass, and a lot of the times the money would go to charity. You'd walk into package stores, or I'd walk into package stores, and it would be, KBS asked for it behind the bar, limit 1 bottle per person.
Yeah.
And then as you guys have started to grow in the last couple of years, and production has sort of ramped up, I remember walking into a CVS of all places, a drugstore, and seeing 6-packs of it, or 4-packs of it, just rows and rows and rows of it, and it's like, nobody's buying this in the same way that they used to, or there's so much more out there.
Well,
and we've seen it with Goose Island as well, like where, Bourbon County comes out, and 5 months later you can still see it on shelves.
Yeah, I think KBS has, and that kind of falls back into the investment we made as a brewery. We got to the point where we realized that, barrel-aged beers are here for a reason. People really, really enjoy them.
Yeah.
They're not the the elusive white whales that they used to be. Not all of them. KBS is the brand's 18 years old.
Yeah.
And so what we started realizing is, one, we built an entire when we were building a storage facility right about a mile down the road from our home base. We had a storage facility where a warehouse. And also we realized, it'd be great if we had another brewery right here just for barrel-aged beer. And so, I think last year we used around 27,000 bourbon barrels. And those take up a lot of space. And so, and to have a facility just dedicated just for barrel-aged beers has been really great.
Yeah.
Because, one, yes, we're going to produce them in much higher volume. So they're more accessible. It doesn't just have to go to these high-end beer bars and these a handful of accounts. Barrel-aged beer now as craft beer is becoming a bit more mainstream. These brands belong everywhere.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't just be like you get you're lucky to get 2 cases of
an
it,
allotment,
and you
or
have,
if that.
and you have to allocate one 12-ounce per customer. We want them to go the distance, and we want people to look at them as, it's great liquid, and it's one of those things that you also have to, just because it's more widely available doesn't diminish the quality of the liquid inside.
So, again, going back to, and just by nature of when we're recording this, our Best of 2018 issue just came out. I normally don't quote heavily from issues on this, but we have our wish list beers and brewers list again from our readers, and Founders actually made number 10 of wish list breweries. This is something that you haven't had yet that you've heard a lot of about, and you'd like to do it. You'd like to have beers from them. The brewery itself is number 10. On the beers list, number 13 out of 15, though, is CBS.
Yeah.
So, Canadian Breakfast Stout, or Canada Breakfast Stout, how do you
Canadian
guys?
Breakfast
Canadian
Stout.
Breakfast Stout, right. So, aged in maple barrels, we were talking about this earlier. And KBS isn't on this list, which sort of tells me that, the people who fill out this list have had it before, so it's no longer on their wish list.
Yeah.
Pliny the Elder's number 1, by the way, on this
Okay.
list. But I wonder, though, for you guys, like it's cool to have this one beer in KBS for so long that people sought after, and now that they've had it and they enjoy it, they might still buy it, or I'm sure they're still buying it because it's doing well for you guys. But now to have CBS to sort of follow that up, where
CBS has kind of taken that that elusive white whale from KBS, and KBS, as we have invested in this other facility and made it, increase the volume on it. Yeah, so we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And we said that's okay because more people deserve to get KBS. It's been voted best beer in the world, and I kind of look at all these, no offense, but a lot of things where it's like, this is the best. I want more people drinking beer at the end of the day.
But when you're talking about the white whale, though, and having two beers that have captured the imagination of at least vocal beer drinkers, though, is there a pressure to keep that going, to find the next blank BS at some point?
Well, I'm not going to lie that you're always looking for the down the road. You're looking at the future, and that's what everyone. That's a very common question. What's the next trend?
Well, I'm not even saying next trend. Like it's
you're talking about like the just elusive beers.
Yeah, like,
I don't know. I don't know.
It seems like you guys have had lightning in a bottle twice with this, which some brewers would kill for.
Well, KBS and CBS, but I would say the lightning is an All Day IPA. That's fucking crushing it. We love those. I guess somewhat lower volume, high exposure brands. But at the end of the day, what pays the bills, keeps the lights on, is selling high volume of beers that tend to be in people's fridges all the time.
When you talk about paying the bills, this is kind of interesting. So 2001 was admittedly, and I've talked with you about this in the past, and other folks at the brewery. You guys are near bankruptcy. You guys made a beer called Bolt Cutter, which you went out and bought a pair of bolt cutters because you thought the bank was going to actually...
They're going to chain our doors shut.
Yeah, and you were going to just somehow clip them open and just get back to business, as it were, which was,
It's a good story, isn't it?
It's cute. It's cute. We'll fact check it as well, but yeah. But you guys were in dire financial straits, and...
We've been in dire straits multiple times.
But
but again, and most small businesses have.
Yeah.
We're just in the beer industry where it's kind of, we're a novelty and people talk about it. But people that open up a restaurant, anyone that owns a restaurant goes through good times and bad times.
But what I want to ask, though, is we're talking about these 7,000 breweries that are in there right now, and there's a lot of folks who, because it is the beer industry, get into it thinking, oh, this is going to be great, or, oh, I'm just going to make some beer and I'm going to keep the lights on and I'm going to, be a millionaire, or I'm going to do all of these other things. And there's folks who think that.
I tell everyone, I'm like, the motivation of why people want to start a brewery is interesting to me because, for years, for nearly 20 years, we've met with people when they say, oh, I want to start a brewery, because from the outside, what we do as brewers looks really fun.
Yeah.
It's very romantic. We run pubs, we have tasting rooms. There's this kind of, pseudo celebrity. People know who we are when they walk into your tap room. Then, oh, that's the owner over there, and look, he's smiling and having beers, and oh, he's living the life.
Yeah, he's going home to read books to his kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't know the sleepless nights or the 2:00 in the morning calls that you get and say, oh, our cash register didn't Z out right last night, or oh, the toilet backed up, and or so and so quit mid shift, and there's it's not as romantic as it may look. And I always say, what is your motivation? Because I always say, this isn't necessarily the rich man's game. So it's are you doing it for the right reasons? Is your motivation because you really love the industry, or what drives you? And for us, it was we want to be known as one of the world's best brewers. I mean, and Mike and I share that vision.
Who get into that want to have that same thing.
But I will say this. I mean, because the space is so busy right now.
Yeah.
So I don't mean this in a terrible way, but I think all the national players are already here. Mm-hmm. Like if you're opening up a brewery now, your business model essentially has to be, you're going to start a brewery for your local community, maybe your region, because there's great liquid all over the world. There are great brewers, trust me, all over the world right now. And I think that's one of the fun things I get to do as one of the ambassadors. See you, Mikey. It's one of our ex-employees.
I was going to say, everybody here.
Yeah, Mikey Wilcox works here.
He's wearing an Elegance shirt that's got a sting. Yeah.
Great guy. Used to work in our education department. No, but I mean the space is really busy right now. So you kind of have to figure out, what's your business model, and can you make sense of being a local brewery or a local tap house that serves a bunch of great local beer. I should say great beer.
Yeah.
Because the local thing has honestly been kind of a thorn in our side. We make great liquid, and there are a lot of places that say, oh, well, we only sell beer, that comes from our zip code. It's like, that makes no sense at all.
But reconcile what you just said with what we were talking about earlier was you guys were at a certain point and then you could either stay the same or you could double down and grow. Yeah. Has that period for craft brewers, small brewers, has that just disappeared at this point?
That disappeared. I honestly, I think we had about a year, maybe 2 years to either shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
And it was like, and this wasn't a decision that we took lightly. I mean, this is, I think, about a $42 million, all right, we're going to buy more real estate, we're buying new equipment, we got, new canning lines, new bottling lines, hiring a whole, a much larger sales force.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it, we didn't half-ass it either. I mean, we looked at it and said we need to invest in, a chain team.
Yeah.
What's the future? I mean, we had a lot of what we call white space in chain because we hadn't really attacked chain at the time because our brand wasn't that large. So now we have a big chain department. Field sales has been killing it for us. And I look at national numbers and go, all right, so last year, I think 9 out of the top 20 largest breweries in the United States were negative. We grew over 30% last year.
Yeah.
And we're on the same trend this year. And a lot of our friends, a lot of friends in the industry continue to struggle, and their brand seems to be, not showing some negative growth. And we continue to buck the system. So we're going to continue doing what we're doing.
If you hadn't doubled down when you did, this is the same thing as the trend question because nobody knows where that's going now, and you can't necessarily see accurately through the rear view mirror. But do you think you'd be in the same? Where do you think your brewery would be if you didn't double down? Be making so much all day, be making so much.
If we didn't double down, if we didn't double down, we wouldn't be in California, the Pacific Northwest.
Would you still be doing okay? Do you think?
Oh yeah, I think we'd be doing great. I mean, we've got great people. I can't say enough about our team and how committed they are to our brand and our culture. I think we would do fine. But again, I'm kind of young, 48.
Yeah.
my partner, I think Mike's maybe 2 years older than me. I don't know. We're having fun. We love what we do, and I hope. I think our team understands how much fun we're having, and this is an adventure to us, and so we're going to keep growing. And honestly, I mean, my goal is to just continue to grow this thing. We want to be, and it goes right back to what we had said, years and years ago. We want to be known as some of the best brewers in the world. And so we're going to keep doing this, and I think Solid Gold is going to reach a new audience and potentially go for, when we hit that 1 million barrel mark. I mean, I see the writing on the wall that, we could be a multi-million barrel brewery, a few years down the road. Maybe we'll be sitting at the Blind Tiger, 5 years from now and go, wow, I can't believe you guys just did 5 million barrels.
Yeah,
maybe
you guys
we
might
will.
own the Blind Tiger at that point.
No, these guys do a great job on their own.
You mentioned company culture, and obviously there's been something hanging over the brewery for the last little bit. There was a former employee who filed a lawsuit in which he called a racist internal corporate culture. And this is somebody who worked for you guys for a couple years who filed a lawsuit who said that he had a difficult time, was subject to some pretty unsavory things.
Yeah. Obviously, I can't talk about that. That's an ongoing investigation.
Sure.
Tracy is a good friend. I can't say anything. I can't say anything about it.
What I will say, though, is that, and I figured that's what you were going to say, though, but there's a statement that one of your attorneys put out, and this is according to the Metro Times, acknowledged that there are several instances in which employees used a racial epithet around there, and the company suggested, that this person was fired for other reasons as opposed to what he was alleging. But when your attorney comes out and gives a statement that acknowledges that, words that are socially unacceptable, and in this case the N-word being used.
Absolutely unacceptable.
Right, but acknowledging that this happened in the past, and acknowledging that this happened, I wonder because...
So, John, I'll stop you there because we can't control what every employee says, but I can say that it is 100% against our company policy, and those employees were addressed, and it is absolutely unacceptable to our company and our policy. So those employees that did use those slurs absolutely were dealt with.
And I think that's great, and this needs to happen, right? I mean, you can't, as you say, control what employees say, and you want to, foster an environment, not only for your employees, but there's also this public image that comes with, any sort of out-facing thing. And we've seen such growth in the industry these days that it was surprising to me that we hadn't heard more stories like this beforehand. And
well, here we are 22 years into this business, and the ethos of our company from day one has been regardless of anyone's race, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, political affiliations, religious affiliations, Founders has always been 100% all accepting. Like, no matter who you are, regardless of your background, everyone is welcome at Founders. So that's why this has hit us. I'll tell you, it has hit us. But this will make us a better company. It has opened up some things. It has forced us to look at our business a little differently because we constantly are looking for improvement. Continuous improvement. That's all we can do.
And it's not just about the liquid.
Well, it's we're a brewery
with improvements. Yeah.
I mean, we in everything we do, we're constantly looking at improving. Our process, our customer experience, but then internally, there are things that this has opened up some things and said, you know what, maybe we could be better here. Maybe we should open up a new avenue for communication here. But it has been very stressful, and it's been very difficult. It's amazing what can happen on social media. And then when you talk to the PR firms and they say, don't say anything, release a statement, and then don't say anything. And I don't know. It's one of those things that, I think Mike and I have really struggled with because, you want to get on the top of a building and shout, "Hey, look here! Look at our 21-year history. Look at our staff right now," and you go, "Look how strong we are." And then something like this happens, and it hits you in social media, and you can't wrap your hands around it, and you can't make it stop. But I can say this, that we are doing everything we can. We've had town hall meetings with our entire staff, and everyone's on board. And so it has been business as usual. We're going to put together some new programs, and it'll make us better in the long run.
As we start to wrap up here, I've been asking folks who've been sitting down with me for this podcast, and I'm imagining this might go back to some of the earlier things that we were talking about beforehand, but what's your hope for beer?
My hope for beer is that beer is, it's widely respected. And I think we need to work as a category to help each other out. And it is interesting to me that you look at the wine industry, you look at the spirits industry, and from what I've seen, there's never any mudslinging, there's no name calling. We're in this industry in beer that continues to lose market share, and we shouldn't. We're at a time right now that we should be, holding hands and helping each other up and trying to build this category, not the craft beer category, but the beer category, and work together to build this category up together. This is not a time that we need to be name calling and trying to decide who's cool and who's not cool anymore. And then we'll all do well,
Dave Engbers, the second pint's hitting me now.
Right.
From co-founder of Founders Brewing, founded in 1997. I'm just going to say it for the mouthfeel of the whole thing. Thanks for sitting down and having a fun conversation.
It's always fun. And thanks to the folks here at the Blind Tiger for hosting us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have questions for me, dear listeners, guests you'd like to hear, topics you'd like discussed, or just want to give criticism and feedback, you can reach me at John Hall, it's JOHNHOLL, at beerandbrewing.com, or you can join the conversation on Twitter at John_Hall. Go to beerandbrewing.com. There you can subscribe to the magazine. Please subscribe to the magazine, and you can read great stories about how to be a better home brewer, about what's happening with craft beer culture in America right now, and more. And with that, Dave, thanks again. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Cheers.
This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.